Good morning. It's Friday morning. Saturday morning, we had signal problems. I couldn't get the broadcast on. Uh, Yesterday morning, we were getting our area cleaned up and getting out of the parsonage and before church. So I just didn't have time. Uh, we did, were able to live stream the morning service yesterday. But last night at Antioch Baptist Church over by Mansfield, um, we just didn't have enough juice to get the program out, so I deleted it. It was all chopped up. I don't think we got but 4 or 5 minutes of a 40 minute of preaching. Then Velda had taken a picture of me up there, and so we put that up. We're back home. We're staying at home. We still have 3 more nights at Antioch Baptist Church, and then I'll be at the National Prayer Breakfast Thursday morning in Branson at the convention center. I'm either saying a prayer or saying something. I don't know. They'll tell me when I get there. I just think I probably ought to wear a tie because it's like a big deal for them. It'll be the first time I've ever done it. I asked if I could go last, not because I wanted them to remember me, not that I would need them to remember me, but somebody just sent me a text message. They were telling me they were clearing the storm. It took my attention for a minute. But anyway, at that prayer breakfast, I asked to go last because I've never done anything like that before. I figured I'd wait and see what everybody else said and how long they talked, and then I would know what to do. If you don't know what's going to happen, don't be first in line because you might get it wrong. You wait until somebody else goes and see what it is, and then go. That is a safe pattern for introverts like me. And I know that you're thinking, well, you're crazy. You're not an introvert. We see you preach. We see you around people. Beloved, I am an introvert who much of the time has to pretend I'm an extrovert, and that I just really love people, being around people, talking to people. It's always hard for me. It's always been hard for me. So I'm an introvert who many times has to pretend to be an extrovert because of my work. If you left it up to old Jimmy, he wouldn't go out much, and he wouldn't talk to anybody. But because I'm an ambassador of Jesus Christ in this ministry of reconciliation, as described in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, I have to be outgoing. I have to have my hand out. I have to have my best foot forward. I have to have both a serious look and a smile on my face because I'm supposed to be sober but filled with joy. And most of the time I am sober-minded and filled with joy. That way I'm neither a laughing idiot nor a sourpuss. I'm very weary, but as you can tell by the backdrop, we're home now. Now, still working. We're still driving back and forth to Antioch every night, but we're staying in our own house. And Antioch is only about 60 miles away, 55 miles away. So it's nothing to drive there and back every night. I pastored a church one time where I drove 52 miles each way. No, it was 58 miles from my house in Ozark. It was 58 miles each way. And we did it. Somehow we did it. I was younger and tougher then, I think. Well, I was younger then. We'll get back to it in Jeremiah chapter 37. It's been so long, I'm just going to bring us up to date. Time has jumped again. Zedekiah is the president. He's the king of Judah. This is not long before the collapse and the siege of Judah. by Nebuchadnezzar. And Jeremiah starts out this chapter out of jail, and then before the chapter's over, he'll be back in jail again, just like he was when that wicked Jehoiakim was the president. I think I'm listening to too much news on the radio while I'm driving. There was no president, the king of Judah. And King Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, reigned instead of Coniah, the son of Jehoiakim, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had made king of the land of Judah. But neither he nor his servants nor the people of the land did hearken unto the words of the Lord, which he spake by the prophet Jeremiah. And Zedekiah the king sent Jehukal the son of Shelemiah and Zephaniah the son of Messiah, the priest, to the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Pray now unto the Lord our God for us. Now Jeremiah came in and went out among the people, for they had not put him into prison. Yet, then Pharaoh's army was come forth out of Egypt, and when the Chaldeans had besieged Jerusalem, heard tidings of them, they departed from Jerusalem. Then came the word of the Lord unto the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Thus shall ye say to the king of Judah, that sent you unto me to inquire for me, Behold, Pharaoh's army, which is come forth to help you, shall return to Egypt into their own land. And the Chaldeans shall come again and fight again this city and take it and burn it with fire. See, the Egyptians used to have a puppet king on the throne of Jerusalem, Jehoiachin, and then Jehoiakim. But then when Nebuchadnezzar defeated the Egyptian empire and sent the Egyptians back down upon the African continent, well then he made Jehoiakim, who had been a vassal king for Egypt, he made him a vassal king for Babylon. Jehoiakim switched sides. Later on, he either died or was murdered. And Nebuchadnezzar put Jeconiah or Coniah in his stead, and made him king. And then he didn't like him, so he came back. And Jeconiah surrendered, and he and his family, his wives, many of the priests and prophets and the rich people, the princes, they went into the captivity, which was the second deportation. Before that, it's possible that Daniel and Ezekiel had already gone, but we don't know that for sure. There were 3 deportation phases that lasted over a period of over 18 years. We can measure that by the times that the king served, and with the historical fall of Jerusalem date being 586 BC. So anyway, Egypt comes up to try to help Judah again, but the army of the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, they leave Jerusalem and go down into Egypt to fight the Egyptians and get them off their tails, so they're weakened so bad they can't do any harm to Babylon. And the Chaldeans shall come again and fight against this city and take it and burn it with fire. Thus saith the Lord, deceive not yourselves, saying, the Chaldeans shall surely depart from us, for they shall not depart, only be gone for a little while. For though he had smitten the whole army of the Chaldeans to fight against you, and there remained but wounded men among them, yet should they rise up, every man in his tent, and burn this city with fire. If there wasn't anybody left but the wounded and the lame, that they would get up and defeat Jerusalem, because I would give them the power and the strength to do it, and give you the weakness and the ill fortune to fall. Because God can do anything he wants to. Nothing is beyond his hand. Anything he decides to do, he can do. And it came to pass that when the army of the Chaldeans was broken up from Jerusalem for fear of Pharaoh's army, Then Jeremiah went forth out of Jerusalem to go into the land of Benjamin to separate himself thence in the midst of the people. In other words, I'm going to go hide out somewhere besides Jerusalem so that they can't kill me, so that the king can't get me. He's not afraid of the Chaldeans, especially, or the Babylonians. He's not afraid of falling into their hands. He's afraid of falling into the hands of the king or the princes in the court or the priest or the prophets who hate him so much. And when he was in the gate of Benjamin, a captain of the ward was there whose name was Irijah, the son of Shelemiah, the son of Hananiah. He's a brother to Jehucal, who was one of the guys that came and asked Jeremiah to pray. Then Jeremiah said, no, the Chaldeans are going to come back and destroy the city. They didn't like Jeremiah saying that. So now he runs across this guy's brother, Irijah, the son of Shelemiah, the son of Hananiah. And he took Jeremiah the prophet, saying, thou fallest away to the Chaldeans. He says, Jeremiah, what are you doing over here in Benjamin? We believe you're trying to run off and join the Chaldeans. You're a traitor. You're collaborating with the enemy. What happens to traitors? They either get shot or hanged. That's what happens to traitors. That's what happens to deserters. He was going to go and join the Chaldeans. He's going to fall away to them, going to go surrender. Because he'd been preaching for a long time that if the people would just surrender and let Nebuchadnezzar take the city, that he wouldn't destroy it. That he wouldn't destroy the people. He was always going to destroy the city, but he wouldn't destroy the people. He would let them live. They would have, many of them would have to go into captivity, but he would let them live instead of dying by the sword. But very few people took him up on that. As a matter of fact, Jeconiah, the king that Nebuchadnezzar deposed to put his uncle Zedekiah on the throne, he did come out and give up to Babylon. And that is exactly what Jeremiah was preaching, whether the king did it for fear or whether he did it for money or whether he did it because Jeremiah preached to him that he should do it. We don't know. We don't have those details. So now Jeremiah is being accused of giving himself up to the Chaldeans. And Jeremiah said in verse 14, it is false. I fall not away to the Chaldeans. Look, I'm just trying to get out of the way of the fighting and to try to keep the higher ups there in Jerusalem from putting me in jail or killing me. I'm not giving up. I'm not leaving Judah and joining the Babylonians. I'm not doing that. And Jeremiah said, it is false. I fall not away to the Chaldeans. But he hearkened not to him. Irijah didn't listen to him. So Irijah took Jeremiah and brought him to the princes. Now, why were the princes at Benjamin? Well, they were going around to the few cities that Nebuchadnezzar had took, trying to arouse the people, trying to encourage the people, probably stealing money from the people. I mean, collecting taxes from the people. And probably persuading them that they need to fall back into the walls of Jerusalem in order to save their lives. There could have been many reasons why the king and the king's men, the princes, were in Benjamin. However, I have a theory. I believe that after Jehucal and Zephaniah brought back the word from the prophet Jeremiah to the king that God was going to destroy the city and take Judah captive no matter what, I think that maybe the king and some of his men went looking for Jeremiah. Or why would the brother of one of the guys that returned with the bad word from Jeremiah to the king, why was his brother there to spot Jeremiah, a captain of the guard, part of the army, and bring him in? He brought him to the princes who were gathered there at Benjamin, which was not very far away. Wherefore the princes were wroth with Jeremiah and smote him and put him in prison in the house of Jonathan the scribe, for they had made that the prison. Well, we're not in Jerusalem, so we don't have a dungeon to throw you in. So we'll just commandeer somebody's house and put you in there and make you stay there. Said that they were mad at him, they were wroth, wherefore the princes were wroth with Jeremiah. You know how hard the army hunts for traitors and deserters? Do you know what they do to them when they're found? I don't think much has changed. I believe they thought Jeremiah was a traitor. At any rate, they didn't like what he said, that no matter what happened, Nebuchadnezzar was going to come and destroy the temple and destroy the city and break down the walls and take the people into captivity. They didn't like that at all. Wherefore the princes were wroth with Jeremiah, and they smote him, they hit him, they beat him. They put him in prison in the house of Jonathan the scribe, for they had made that the prison. Now, when Jeremiah was entered into the dungeon and into the cabins, Jeremiah had remained there many days. Remember, this is a guy's house, so maybe he's in the basement. Maybe he is in the rooms in the back. It talks about the cabins. Maybe there was a rich man, and he had a compound, and he had outside buildings for his servants to live in. They used one of those. A whole lot of detail. When Jeremiah was entered into the dungeon and into the cabins, and Jeremiah had remained there many days. How many days? Probably long enough for the Chaldeans to beat the Egyptians and start moving back toward Jerusalem. The reason I think this is because of the way this chapter plays out. When Jeremiah was entered into that dungeon and into the cabins, and Jeremiah had remained there many days, we're not told how many. He might have been there a year or more. Then Zedekiah sent and took him out. And the king took him secretly in his house. King brought him inside. King said, get Jeremiah out of jail. Bring him to me. And the king asked him secretly in his house, said, is there any word from the Lord? Zedekiah asked Jeremiah. Now, the last time Jeremiah told him the word of the Lord, if not the king, at least the king's men put Jeremiah in jail. And they didn't do it in Jerusalem, they did it in Benjamin. And so he was in jail just as surely as if he had been in the pit of the dungeon under the king's house in Jerusalem in chains. Is there any word from the Lord? The king asked. Last time the king asked, of course, Jeremiah was not treated very well because he gave a truthful answer. If you answer the truth in today's church business, the churchianity that we suffer through, this religious madness that we go through, they call it Christianity. You see, Christ is not in any of that. Christ came to set us free, not to put us into bondage. All religion is I do. Christianity is he did, and he is done. It is finished. Just like God rested on the Sabbath after the creation, he didn't rest because he was tired. He rested because the creation was over. He was finished. He was done. By the same token, when Christ ascends into heaven after rising from the dead, after suffering his passion on Calvary, dying on the cross, and his blood paid for our sins, when he ascended into heaven after the 40 days of appearing to the people after his resurrection, he sat down on the right hand of God. until his enemies would be made for him a footstool. And that's still an ongoing process right now, which will culminate not very long from now, because the rapture is coming soon. And then in a few years, 7 years roughly, Jesus will come back with an army of saints and all the hosts of heaven, and I will be in that host. I'll be one of those saints behind him, mounted on a white horse, following him, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, following him, saying, righteous and true are thy judgments, so Lord. You know what I'll be called then? I won't be referred to in any human terms at all. Jesus refers to us as called and faithful and true. That's pretty good. I like it. If you give the word of the Lord in this day of declension and in the religiosity of the church industry, and you'll be hated by many, because the trouble with being holy, and that just means living a separated life. See, if you live a holy, separated life, separated unto Christ from this world, if you live a life of repentance toward God and faith toward Jesus Christ, you'll be shunned, you'll be made fun of, and there will be people who want to destroy you just because you make them realize that what they're doing is wrong, and that you're the real deal, and they can't compete with you with all of their incense and fancy clothes and highfalutin words and everything. Or on the other end of the extreme, their blue jeans in their tent churches where they cuss out the president. I don't see that anywhere in the Bible that we're supposed to do that. I don't have much faith I don't have any faith in this administration. I don't have any faith in any human agency. My faith is in God. My citizenship is in heaven. My general, my Lord is Christ. He is my King. So if you have any word from the Lord, you're going to be thrown in jail. Either physically or symbolically. Many of us are put in a prison where people wall us off and make fun of us and slander us on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. The laws of libel and slander, they don't work anymore. You can say anything about a Christian you want to. It's like we're fair game. And that is if you have a word from the Lord. Well, the last time that Jeremiah gave the word of the Lord, now here he will round up in prison. And it's been many days. The king sends for him, lets him out, brings him to his own house. Says, is there any word from the Lord? Jeremiah, who could have said, oh, king, live forever. Everything's going to do good for you. And everything's going to go well. And well, then he might have been released, or he might have got a reward. But Jeremiah is true to the word of the Lord. It doesn't matter what men may do for you or against you. The word of God remains true. You must say it without any change, without any alteration, complete and unadulterated. It can't be profaned by the world or by any admixture of man's wisdom. It must be the word of God. Is there any word from the Lord? And Jeremiah said, there is. For said he, thou shalt be delivered into the hand of the king of Babylon. And I imagine that the king just kind of slumped. Because you see, on some level, this king, not Jehoiakim, but King Zedekiah, he knew that what Jeremiah was saying was true. Moreover, Jeremiah said unto King Zedekiah, what have I offended against thee, or against thy servants, or against this people, that ye have put me into prison? Why do you have me in jail? Why do you keep me in jail? Where are now your prophets which prophesied unto you, saying, the king of Babylon shall not come against you, nor against this land? See, we know from this verse that the Babylonians who had besieged Judah, that they had besieged Jerusalem, they left to go fight the Egyptians. They won their scrap with the Egyptians, sent them back down onto the African continent, and now they have regathered and are beginning the siege of Jerusalem again and beginning to press in. When Jeremiah says, what have I done against thee to offend thee? Thee put me into prison. Now all your prophets which prophesied unto you, saying, the king of Babylon shall not come against you nor against this land. Where are they? They're all wrong. They're not coming around the king. They're not giving many words because all of their words are lies. That's the way with most modern prophets. They're just prophesying whatever they have in their head. God did not tell them. They prophesy and they tell about a dream that God gave them. God didn't give them the dream. I'm sure in a rare case this happens, but this isn't normal. No. And I'm not a cessationist. I'm a continualist. I believe that all of the gifts of the Spirit are in operation today. But just as it was back in the first century church, it's not the everyday normal thing to happen. When Jesus was alive and during the first days of the apostles in the book of Acts, you just see miracle after miracle after miracle. And then as we go on, you don't see them every day like you did at the first. But they haven't quit. They're still there. God is still God. He doesn't change. So anyway, where are all your prophets, all your false prophets? Well, they're in hiding because they were wrong. It reminds me of all these people that said Trump was going to get reelected in 2020. I'm thinking to myself, they're all wrong. It ain't going to happen. You can't let nearly 1 million people die on your watch of a plague and get reelected. It's impossible. He was beaten the day that the COVID virus was discovered. He lost the election on that day. He lost the election in March of 2020, not in November. It's just a matter of mathematics and the way people are. I wrote down that was what would happen, and I gave it to a handful of Baptist ministers to check the accuracy afterward. I don't make a big deal out of it, but I saw what was going to happen, and I wrote it down so that when it did happen, people would know. But I didn't go on TV. I didn't say nothing about it. I didn't say that I was a prophet. I didn't say that God gave me a dream or that God talked to me and spoke to me. The way it happened was I just knew something that I didn't know before, and so I wrote it down. As much for myself as for the men I gave it to. I don't know exactly what to do with this. It's not something I can control. It just happened. It's happened very few times in my life, but it's always been 100% right. So I'm not talking about the gifts of the Spirit that are properly used and properly given by God. I'm talking about men who are liars, who said what the king wanted to hear so that things would go well with them, but eventually the chickens come home to roost. Where are all those false prophets now? They're not coming around you, are they? They're not telling you anything, O king. So Jeremiah says in verse 20, therefore hear now, I pray thee, O my Lord the king. Let my supplication, I pray thee, be accepted before thee, that thou cause me not to return to the house of Jonathan the scribe, lest I die there. If I go back there, they're either going to kill me or starve me to death. Please don't send me back there. Then when I told you many months ago that Zedekiah was not necessarily a good thing, but there were a few occasions where he did the right thing. Very few, but there were a few. Jeremiah says, don't send me back there because I'll die there. They'll kill me. Either they'll kill me or I'll starve to death or I'll get sick and die. And then Zedekiah, the king, in verse 21, commanded that they should commit Jeremiah into the court of the prison. Let him be outside. Let him sleep on the porches. Let him come in and out of his room. You don't have to keep him locked up in there. You don't have to feed him, as they say, the bread of affliction and the water, the bread of affliction and the water of adversity. They don't have to do that. They don't have to give him bread and water or even, bologna sandwiches on dry bread that you used to get in the county jail. I think they did it on purpose, man. They give you some water. That light bread had been sitting out so long that some of it was as hard as toast. You'd have that one piece of bologna on it. You had water. Sometimes you had punch, but it was so weird tasting. Well, Brother Harris, you're talking like you've been in jail. Well, I have been in jail. I was a drunk for over 20 years. You can't be a drunk for 20 years. Well, it's hard to be a drunk for 20 years and not wind up in jail sooner or later. I'm just glad I did all of that stuff before the internet. Thank God I don't have to live that way anymore. But look what the king tells him. The king did a good thing here. He said that he commanded that they should commit Jeremiah into the court of the prison. And this tells you how close we are to the collapse of Judah. That's why I'm thinking that the timing is wonky. This timing isn't 4 years before, 3 or 4 years before the fall of Jerusalem. It may only be a year before the fall of Jerusalem. He said, Zedekiah the king commanded that they should commit Jeremiah to the court of the prison, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread out of the baker's street. The baker's making the bread. He sets off a free chunk for Jeremiah to the side. Make sure Jeremiah gets a piece of bread on the king's order. He says, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread out of the baker's street until all the bread in the city were spent. In other words, until the day that we run out of bread, the king. See, he knows they're going to run out of bread. The siege has already begun, or he wouldn't have said that. Until the day that we run out of bread, until the bread is spent. Why would the bread be spent? Because the Chaldeans have surrounded the town and there's no getting in or out, and they're going to fall no matter what. And Egypt, who tried to relieve them, was beaten back onto the African continent, and they will not come up again. They cannot stand against the arms of the Chaldeans. They cannot stand before Nebuchadnezzar. Zedekiah knows this. Zedekiah the king commanded they should commit Jeremiah into the court of the prison, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread until all the bread in the city were spent. Until it's gone, till the day it's gone, you make sure Jeremiah gets his piece. And put him out of his room. Let him come and go to his room. Let him sit out in the court. Let him see the sunshine. Let him feel the breeze and the rain. Give him a little bit of freedom. Now, the king didn't say, let him go and start preaching and tell everybody that the city's going to fall. But he did unlock the cell. He did let him out into the courtyard. He did guarantee him a piece of bread as long as there was any bread. Thus Jeremiah remained in the court of the prison. We have finished chapter 37. Tomorrow, God willing, we will proceed to chapter 38. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, there may not be a program tomorrow. Velda has a very early doctor's appointment to have some tests run at the main hospital. Well, I say it's a doctor's appointment. She's going to get some tests run that were ordered by the doctor. I doubt we'll see. I'm sure we won't see the doctor. So that we have to be down there by 7:45 in the morning. So there may not be time to get the program on. And so that's how it is with us. Sometimes life intervenes and you don't have time to do the program. But I should be happy for that because the Lord is keeping us busy and the Lord is keeping us alive. There will come a day, if I live long enough, where my body and mind will deteriorate to the point where I won't be busy at all, but I'll have plenty of time to do anything I want to do. The good news is that I want to do everything we're doing except going to the doctor. We're preaching every day. We are seeing people come to Christ. We're seeing the remnant strengthened. And that is very important to us at this point in time. When the Word of God is questioned, whether God exists as a God is denied, where the claims of Christ have been driven from the public square. It is very important to us to go and encourage the remnant of God's people that one day will be in hiding. The true blood-bought church of Jesus Christ. We got to go and comfort them and tell them that Jesus is coming soon. And that he will take vengeance on his enemies. So take heart, the Lord is coming. Maranatha.